This is Django Reinhardt. He revolutionized guitar playing after the loss of half his fingers. When the Nazis occupied France during World War II, he returned to France while his musical partner, Stéphane Grappelli, was like, I think I'll stay here in the UK, thanks.
Gypsy musician returns to France of his own accord.
In 1933, as the Nazis were beginning their hostile takeover of Europe, Einstein said, "One can only hope that the present crisis will lead to a better world." Is there a crisis today? If so, what is it? And if you believe there is a crisis, how do you describe it? In other words, what stories are you telling yourself? Did you choose those stories? Or were they chosen for you? And if they were chosen for you, who is benefiting from that choice?
This old boy asks a lot of questions. I don't think that's gonna go very well for him in the long run.
I wish he'd just tell me, what he believes so I could decide whether I agree with him or not.
Hi, my name is Trav, and I'm not asking you to believe what I'm saying. In fact, I am encouraging you to question all that you experience. Where do our questions come from? Did you know that if you give yourself rightly to the study of the human condition, and if you devote yourself to a fearless internal inquiry of your own progression, you will begin to see similarities? Did you know that if you become curious about your own questions, and then you make an inquiry into the deepest of human questions that are recorded, you will begin to see that the questions at their root are the same? What can we know? What are we capable of knowing? And how can we come to know it?
Transrational blue.
We may come to see the same evolution of consciousness in our personal progression that we see in our collective consciousness. Do you remember the internet before the algorithms? The algorithms now analyze our every swipe and hover so that they can more accurately give us the content that we desire. It is our attention that the algorithms are designed to capture. But to what end? Our attention, I have heard it said, is the new real estate. Or we might easily imagine that our attention is the crop which is being harvested by corporate designed algorithms. How do we decide where we place our attention? Do the financial elites benefit from your true awakening? Do those who are in control of the industrialized war machine benefit from your true awakening? What happens to our minds as our choices become unconsciously forfeited to the diverse and many pyramid schemes of our own creation? Where is our attention, and how did it get there? What is worthy of our attention today? Are we brave enough to align our actions with what we know to have true value? Are we aligning our labor with what we know to have true worth? Work, I've heard it said, is equal to a distance multiplied by a Newton. If we apply a force to an object over a distance, then our work may be expressed in terms of joules. Do you know Isaac Newton? He's the guy who published this book way back in 1687 that would eventually take us to the moon. The physical principles that he described way back in the 17th century were the same principles that allowed us to project and plot orbital trajectories for a spacecraft in motion around our planet and moon.
I mean, if you believe that shit really happened.
And if you've ever given those ideas enough thought, then you may have some really great questions to ask someone who suggests to you that the Earth is flat. If, and then, if you have devoted yourself to the understanding of what we know, then you will have questions for any alternate idea that may be presented to you. If you have even a basic understanding of physics, then you will know that if the Earth is flat, then all of astrophysics would need to be redone entirely. And that is a really good place to start a conversation with someone who is emotionally invested in the Earth being flat. Also, did you know that when the new James Webb Telescope went online, that some physicists said, well, we're going to have to rework our astrophysics. The universe might be twice as old as we thought. Did you know how quickly now that was once obvious science is now being reevaluated? I mean, the scientific method is pretty awesome, isn't it? And did you know that sometimes scientists behave with the same closed-minded religious zeal that many of them have condemned in the mystic? One might say that when we turned our attention toward the indescribably small things in this world, that our consciousness folded in on itself. Einstein believed that this inquiry into the unimaginably small realm of the quantum was worthy of our attention. Quantum entanglement blew even Einstein's mind. Do you know Socrates? He placed a whole lot of value in questions, and that was so threatening that some people in his culture called for his death. He was accused of poisoning the youth with his depth inquiries. What are the most important questions in your life today? How are you forming those questions? And who are you bringing those questions to?
To whom are you bringing those questions?
And just who do you think you are, asking all these questions?
Now, did he just say he was Socrates?
You don't understand what he's saying?
No, I don't understand what he's saying. I mean, was he saying the Earth is flat or not?
Is he telling me that science is good or bad? Human condition? He's driving around in a van? I'll tell you what the human condition is. The human condition is you better get your ass back to work, son.
Just back away from the phone and the pen and the paper and that guitar. I don't know what's going on.
First time romance, turn up the quiet. Love wants to dance.
My heart is overflowing with gratefulness for Steve and Carla of Simple Truth and the cathartic musical community with whom they gather. Thank you all. We can describe it now in diverse and many ways. The great tyranny that we have apparently chosen, that we have allowed ourselves. The Declaration of Independence says that the government that we see over ourselves is the one basically that we have consented to. Is the government that you see over you now the one you have consented to? And what about the government in here? Is there justice happening in here? That's a question that only you can answer for yourself, which is also the only place that true authority can arise from. What does one do in their darkest moment? Do you know what it's like when the hurt, the hate, the abandonment, the rejection, the isolation is right on the surface? Do you know what that's like? For many years now, thousands of hours I've devoted to meditation and prayer, but there are still times when my emotion and thought life seems to be out of my control. And it is in those times when I have to rededicate myself to the waiting and a great patience. Do you see that young man right there? There's a reason I keep showing you these images of myself in uniforms. That young man had a true vision for service, and he was deeply disappointed in the realization of that vision. You know what I discovered once I was in the club? A bunch of hurting men just like myself. Men who were ussing and theming all over the place. Men who were small and insecure and hurt inside. That's who I met while I was wearing this uniform, and I uncovered that in me to a greater degree. Showing you these uniforms and talking about my experience like this is one way that I can express the betrayal that I feel. Don't get me wrong, I'm
aware that I have lived a privileged life.
Psychology has now come to understand that there are no individual mental health struggles, or at least not in as much as we thought. We now understand that every individual manifestation of a mental health problem represents the deeper problem of our culture.
We live down here in the foothills, where the paths are all riddled with holes, and the king up there on the mountain will be appeased by nothing less than our souls. Yeah, he wants nothing less than our souls. And so we offer our labor at the cost of our own worth. I don't mean to be rattling sabers, but I had my second birth. Yeah, I had my second birth. You know, Henry David Thoreau saw a government that was tyrannical and warmongering, and he said, "No, I will not support this." Civil Disobedience was the essay that he wrote. That essay apparently got in the hands of one we call Mahatma Gandhi, the great soul, that one in India who aligned his gifting and privilege behind the voice of the people. And he was willing to take a beating, willing to risk death at many turns. There were also those of us who rose up in the United States before I was born in the 60s, 50s, and before. Those who were rising up for generations, who decided, yes, I will sit in this seat on the bus. Yes, I will sit at this drugstore counter. And we are all coming to this place again as we realize the great tyranny that we have somehow agreed to.
Labor and the expression of worth.